couple of people, but we do have our quorum. So, it being 6 o'clock, I'd like to call the Town Hall School Admin Building Committee to order. First will be a roll call. Diane Allen,
Here.
Kevin Kyra, John Doherty.
Here.
Jesse Finley. Stephen Turner. Jack Holloway.
Here.
Paul Malorani.
Here.
Paul Ruggiero.
Here.
Glenn Brand. Dan Pilata's here, Jeff Hull, and Phil O'Brien. Myself, George Hooper is here. All right, along with the agenda, I sent out some minutes from September 28th. I'm looking for some discussion on that. There was a blank spot down here after discussion of the RF HVAC system. I think there was a question on who that was seconded by.
Probably.
Does anybody recall?
No, I don't remember.
Well, it looks like John Doherty to me.
I think it was John, too.
I do, because I think Kevin made it and John probably just immediately, 1 second.
Any other edits? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to accept.
Motion.
Do I have a second?
That-
All in favor? Aye.
I'll abstain, wasn't present.
You want present? All right, one abstention, Paul Malorani. Thank you very much. All right, Dan, discussion on construction estimates.
So, we don't have anything on estimates.
Oh, wait, actually, sorry, went to this one, sorry.
Timeline.
Whoopsie.
So, Phil.
Updates on
Phil-
scheduled
yeah.
timelines.
So, a couple of things I wanted to go over today is, first of all, we do have a schedule for design bid build that we're gonna present. It's a little bit different than what we presented at town meeting by a month. We haven't met for a month, so it's out a month. And Phil's got a presentation put together. When he's done with his presentation, I do want to have a discussion about delivery method for construction, whether we want to go 149 design bid build or 149A, which is CM at risk. You
Okay.
built your high school CM at risk. It is possible for us to get a CM on board by April. It will be tough, but we can do it. Or we can do design bid build and put the whole thing out to bid. I think we have it sometime in, around December. So it's entirely up to you guys how you want to do it. There's advantages and disadvantages.
All right, we
to
can have
both-
that discussion.
both
Phil, do you
delivery.
have handouts? I know,
Well, I brought the schedule because he and I talked about schedule this week. I didn't realize he was bringing a whole presentation, so I didn't print the
I just finished
presentation.
this today, and then frankly, I forgot that we typically did handouts, and so I didn't print them.
so do you have a presentation? or
I do.
He does.
Do you want, is it
So-
set up to?
It's set up to go right here.
It's
Okay.
gonna be hard for,
I emailed a link to you two, and
Okay.
then I remembered that Diane may want to see it, and so
Diane, I'm gonna email you a link.
I sent it to you.
Oh, she's got it?
I sent it
Oh,
to
no.
your Comcast email address.
Your Comcast email is a link to the presentation,
Okay,
all right, because you're not gonna be able to see it.
all right, so I go, how do I access it?
If you just-
go to my email?
Yeah, if you go to your Comcast email, and then you click,
Yeah.
you click on the link, it will take you to Google website, and I posted it there.
Okay, Johnson Roberts Associates, yes, I see I see it right here.
Send it to George.
Okay, I
And
see
you.
a thing right there. Oh, wait a minute. Yep, got it.
You can send that out to everybody after the meeting,
I will.
all right?
I'll make sure I send it out. It'll also go to WCTV.
Right.
We'll have it on the town website.
Excellent.
Okay, so site plan, not much changed on the site plan. I brought it in case there was any questions about it.
Okay?
Overall, the size of the building changed slightly. One of the things that I did since the last time we met is I went through the plans again, because every time you move things around in a plan, in schematic design, things stretch and get kind of morphed a little bit, and the building had actually grown a little. And so we squeezed it back down to what it shows in the building program. Doesn't make a big difference, but now it matches what's in the building program rather than bigger than that. And that'll help because it's going to be a little cheaper to build too, and you don't need to build the extra space.
Absolutely.
So that's what we did. The other thing that we wanted to do was take a closer look at individual office spaces. And so I'd like folks, when they get a copy of this, to take a closer look at the individual departments, and we'll have to talk, if you'd like me to go around and talk to the department heads or something like that, whatever you think works, and kind of go through it with folks, because we'd like the okay to send this off to our engineers so they can get going on it. And there's still time and to move some things around, but from here on out, basically, moving things around gets less easy the more time goes by.
So what I'll do is I'll have a discussion with the manager, and maybe we can set something up once we get this out, and have the department heads, and I'll talk to the school department, and we can have the school administration involved.
Okay, great. One of the other things that I will point out as we go is that we were trying really hard to try to get every closed private office with a window, and I think we nailed that. I think we got it. So so that's one
I
of
think
the.
that's a wonderful idea, excuse me, Phil, I think that's a wonderful idea that you just suggested, and I wholeheartedly agree with it. In fact, one of the offices that I would suggest that you add is in the recreation department. They have classes that right now they hold at the town hall, like upholstery and a few other things. The cooking classes, I know they're having over at the high school, but the upholstery class and things like that, maybe you could discuss with them where some of those things could be held, and take a look at what they have set up. They have their newsletter set up already.
Sure.
So that's why I say, I think that's an excellent suggestion. What you're saying is to go around to the department heads and see if there's enough space.
Sure. I will check with them. The programmatic requirements for that space is based on my discussions with them. It's actually laid out with a work table in there. That's on the second floor, which I'm gonna get to in a moment. I'm on the first floor right now. But I'll point that out as I go.
Okay.
Chair, I'm sorry
Okay.
for coming in late.
It's okay.
And I know I'm in the middle of the discussion, but had you had discussions with department heads before to lay this out? Because
Yes.
I was under the assumption you did.
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
But we're at the point now where we're getting pretty close to the end of schematic design in terms of the floor plan, right? I'm in design development, actually, right? Once I send this off to all of my engineers and they start laying these things out, they're gonna start laying out lighting and ductwork and all of the stuff. That's really gonna be dependent on where the walls are.
Good.
So moving a wall now, before I do that, it's a lot easier. Once I move this wall 5 feet that way, all the engineers have to change all their stuff as well. So it just gets harder to move things later.
Okay.
So that's why I'd like, now that I think where we're kind of at the end of the planning, I would just like everybody to say, that looks good, that meets our needs.
I just wanted to be clear that you had talked to all the department heads before to
Right.
get the amount of space that they wanted. Because I was under the assumption from some individuals here at Town Hall that it was not done.
Yeah.
Although I did check with the town manager, he said it was done. So I want to
Yes.
make sure that now we're not doing something that you should have done before.
No.
And just to clarify also, I have gone around and spoken to the department heads as we go through, and also in our department head meetings, that this is out. We also had this out in the hallway for months on end, so lots of questions were generated, so we talked about, and now, once we're into design development, as Phil's saying, we're trying to just critique things to get it exactly. I will set up another meeting with them so they can actually see this again. Now they can put eyes to something that's a little bit more detailed, and they'll have some more idea of what their space is going to look like.
But I wouldn't expect, I would not expect to see dramatic changes. There might be a tweak here or there, but.
No.
I mean, this is substantially what we're talking about.
Yeah, I would expect that if somebody is looking at an apartment that has 2 offices in it, if the accountant says, I would really rather be sitting here rather than in the corner, I don't think the accountant's gonna say that, but they might. Those are the kind of things, or if somebody says, it would be better if my door was on this side of the room versus that side.
Right.
I'm expecting the things that we're gonna hear back are gonna be pretty subtle. But it's also, and things haven't changed very much. But if there's anything that somebody would like to do differently, the sooner we hear that, the better. Which is why I'm suggesting that we just, now that we're at this stage, the other thing that I mentioned before you come in, I think Kevin, was, is that, as you move things around in schematic design, things, it's still kind of squishy. And so we did a double check, and we were actually a little bit bigger than we needed to be via the program. So we squished the building back down, and now the size of the building meets the program. It had grown a little bit as we kind of, as it contorted itself into this shape. So, so things haven't moved anywhere in terms of where they were before. We just provided a little bit more detail. So your large meeting room and your hearing room are still here. Cable TV with a window so that they can see each of these spaces. And then there's a door that they can get in from either side so that they can provide service to these rooms. Now, there could certainly be remote cameras in this room or elsewhere if that's something you decided to do, and you can still use this as a control room. It depends on how much they want to put in there. One of the things that we'd like to do is talk to the cable TV folks and the IT folks with our electrical engineers and just make sure we go over all that stuff. And so when I mentioned we're talking about department heads, it's the next stage, and we just really want to get into that nitty-gritty with it. Entrance is here. Nighttime closure is there, so you can still get to the janitor closet. The toilets, storage spaces are still available after hours. All that we're still trying to do. Treasurers, town clerk, assessor, accountant. These things haven't really moved around at all. Wanted to make sure that each of the private offices is on a window, and so we've done that. Storage spaces in the back, the shared vault space is here. The coffee is combined with coffee. That hasn't really changed all that much. You'll recall this on the lower floor is down below grade on this floor.
Bill, before you move forward, can I just, one quick question, in the meeting room on the left, excuse me, storage space in the middle,
Yep.
am I seeing only one entrance? And is
Yes.
there a reason for that? I didn't know if it would make sense to have entrance to that room on both sides.
Add a door here?
Yeah. I
Certainly
just-
could. We've got a storage room here with the door.
That's, okay, I missed that part, so that makes sense.
So these guys are sharing that, but if you think it would be handy to be able to get it access in there, we can.
My only concern on that would be, we are going to be storing a lot of equipment from that large meeting hall into that, and when you do another pass-through, you eliminate storage area.
Sure.
Well, and I also, I'm not gonna lie, I missed the other storage for the smaller meeting room on the top, so knowing that that has its own storage space makes sense that they don't really want entrance to the larger one, so I have no objection.
Okay.
Thanks, Bill.
Sure. And then, once we get into, with our engineers, we're gonna hear from them whether or not they're happy with the size of these rooms. I think they probably will be. But one of the other things that I'm expecting that we'll probably hear is, man, I'd like to have a sub-panel for electrical on the second floor or the third floor. I'm expecting, there are gonna be things like that they're gonna want. They may ask for a sprinkler room that's different from heating, whatever. But those are the kind of subtleties that will have to happen, and we'll have to make arrangements for when we get to that point, once they lay out how that's gonna work.
Just a question in terms of the electrical, is this gonna be designed in such a way that for lack of a better term, the electrical capacity, 25 years down the line, if there's need for additional electricity, that it will support that?
Yes, in a word. And we can have, when the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing, and fire protection engineers come here, they'll make a presentation, and they'll talk to you about that. So they'll size the building, figuring for additional capacity. There'll be additional capacity in all of the panels. There'll be additional capacity in the switchgear, and they'll size the generator, if we have a generator, and they'll size the transformer for additional capacity as well, so that you'll have room for growth. and that even if you decided at a later date that you needed to pull that transformer off and put a bigger one on, there'll be spare conduit that come in and so forth from there and to the street, so that you can do the things you need to do in the future.
Hey, Phil, I have
Can
a
I ask a question? Go ahead.
Hold on, Diane.
Just a question, and it's always kind of, and I may have asked before, and it's probably too late, but why wasn't the clerk's office first? Because I always feel the clerk's office should be first, and then the treasurer.
Yeah.
Is it because of the room size and the windows?
It's because of the way that it lays out, right,
Okay.
because of the design. And you're right, we did have that at one point, and then it swapped back. It's actually, when you come in and you step past this point right there, I think you're gonna actually see the clerk's office before you will see the treasurer. And we'll show that to you in the interior renderings when we get to that point. But I think it's gonna be pretty clear where they are.
No, it just always kind of bugged me a little. I always think the clerk should be first coming in the door, and then the treasurer, then the
Yeah.
assessor, then the.
We also have a
Yeah.
drop.
Hey, we're convened, we got them on both sides, take a left and take a right.
Yeah.
And we do have a lot of traffic to the treasurer's office. too.
Yeah, oh, sure.
A lot of traffic goes to the treasurer's office, a lot of traffic.
Did you have a question, Diane?
I did have a question, yes. The entranceway, the doorway, this may be premature, but are the doors going to be a door that, like, for, say, disability, that you press the button and the door opens? Or are we talking about electronic doors that the minute you step up to it, the door opens?
An automatic door is not a code requirement, but a lot of people think it is. So I typically, I have resisted this for a long time because it's a maintenance issue and it's a cost issue for you. But in my experience, when we've done town halls and not put them on, the public comes in and complains that your building doesn't comply. And you can tell them until you're blue in the face that it does comply, and it's not a code requirement, they don't believe you. So I'm gonna suggest that you put automatic doors on here with a push button. So it doesn't open automatically for everybody, but if you need it, you can push the button.
Okay. I prefer that way, because I'm gonna tell you something. The minute someone steps in it and it opens, and it's cold and it's freezing.
Yes.
And these doors are opening,
That's the lady from
we'll be
Florida.
losing a lot of heat out of the building and everything.
Yeah, and it
Thank
exercises the motor a lot more than it really needs to be.
Correct.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Phil, I have a question also. It's not accessibility, but it's more security. Unfortunately, in today's environment, what we see, and I'm thinking more of protecting the people in the town hall. Has any consideration really been thought about that?
At this point, no, but I mean, like a lockdown procedure like you might have. in
I
a
think
school?
we have to put some consideration into that as we get into this design phase.
We certainly could. A lockdown, just so that everybody is, and we'll have to decide how far it goes. With a lockdown procedure in a school, you'd want each of the classrooms to be able to lock down. And for a town office, you might want to just have the exterior doors locked down, but if somebody's already in the building, so it's one of those things that we'll need to get to. Locking down every entranceway, when you have an open counter like that, isn't gonna really provide you with a lot of
Yeah.
security.
Not pretending to be an expert on it, so what I'll do when we do our department head meetings, I'll make sure that we have the police chief and one of his officers.
Okay.
That'll be involved.
Because it's probably a couple $1,000 per door. And if you're doing the front door and the back door, and then the egress doors are exit only, and so you can't get in there.
You're looking for panic buttons and things like that, too?
We may, something that unfortunately has come about, so.
Yeah, that is, to that point, one of the things that has come up at various points in this building. You know, we'll have individuals that, and I can think of examples in the treasurer's office, clerk's office, where people have come in, they have not fortunately, for the most part, become threatening physically, but verbally abusive. And we've talked about, I think at one time, in fact, there may have been some kind of a system where people could hit a button, but it's been disabled for many, many years. But there may be, I think it would be worth some consideration of the ability for someone in the treasurer's office that, you know, if there's some issue going on, to hit a panic button that, whether it alerts the
Yeah.
public safety building or however that would work, but at least give some thought to that.
God forbid an active shooter or something along
Sure,
those
I
lines.
understand exactly what you mean.
Just to follow up with George, is that the opening or the area in front of the treasurer's office, whatever, the countertop
Yes,
space.
yep.
Is there going to be a heavy glass that comes down halfway or a
We
bit of a
haven't-
way? or-
We haven't really gotten to that point yet.
Section, or-
We could. In some of the town offices we've done, we have added glass, like a teller window.
And then you have like 3 inches on the bottom. or
Sure,
something.
but we've only done it at the collector's office. All the rest of them just are open. If you decide that you wanted glass on all of them, we certainly could. It's just gonna cost more money. But we certainly could. It's hard to do things like, you know, roll through a set of plans on the counter with stuff like that.
No, I was just asking, like on the first floor where you have the treasurer's office and you have the treasurer's office and then you have the clerk's office. It looks like one huge counter,
Yep.
but you're gonna just put glass on the treasurer's side and not on the,
It's up to,
I wonder how that would look. I don't know.
well, I think it'd probably look fine. If the
Okay.
question is about security, if you are interested in that. Some folks want it and some folks don't. The glass is really there to keep somebody from hopping over the counter. If you don't think that that's really a security concern, then I wouldn't worry about it.
No, I have no problem with the glass on the treasurer's side. I just was wondering why wouldn't it be extended through the, I mean, how does it just stop? It just hangs there? I
We're
don't
gonna
know.
do some, we're gonna do some interior computer renderings and show that stuff to you. And
Okay.
if you think it looks funny, we can
Yeah.
Okay. revisit it. It could be one of those discussions that you have with the department heads as well. They may decide that everybody may say, yeah, I'd like to have glass, or,
Oh, that's true. They
and
may.
I
they
don't
may
really
want
know. I would, if folks are unsure, I'd say visiting some other buildings that have it might be worth it. I know that when we did the town offices in Drake, they borrowed a bus from the Council on Aging, and they drove around and went to see 3 or 4 different newer town halls. As a group, other folks have just kind of talked about it amongst themselves and have gone off and visited buildings.
And just another thing, I'm sorry, Jim,
No, go
just
ahead.
about the panic button that you'd mentioned. I know you talked about it in the individual rooms, but how about in the meeting rooms? Well, I know that some of our selectmen meetings have been a little heated.
Really?
We've had some call to
Is it for,
action. so
is
to
it for
speak.
residents or is it for the selectmen?
Yeah.
I didn't know.
Yeah.
The other part of that is what's at the other end of the button? What happens? Where does it go?
Public safety,
Probably would it go there? Okay.
yeah. Yeah.
I do have a question. If you put up glass, how's that gonna affect the HVAC?
I will just have to make sure that they know about it.
Okay.
They'll be designing for it. Each of these different departments is gonna have their own zone anyway. There'll be a
Okay.
thermostat in each of those rooms.
Okay,
So putting that there isn't gonna make a big impact. They won't be able to rely on the offices here to provide the air in this corridor.
right,
But I'm not sure they would anyway. I
Okay.
don't wanna pretend to be a mechanical engineer.
okay,
If we ventilated this space by exhausting and you provided air in here where the people are, and then ventilated it out, drew it out into this space,
Mhm.
you'd basically be providing the air in the corridor with basically what's left over from the offices.
Okay.
They may do that, or they may have something in the corridor itself, given the size of it. I
Yeah.
don't really know.
okay.
But I don't think it's gonna have an impact one way or the other.
Yeah. I didn't want to sidetrack your thing, but I thought it needed to be mentioned.
Oh, sure, yeah. And when our engineers come to do their kind of dog and pony show, and make suggestions and everything, any ideas that you have like that, I'd like you to kind of
Jot them down.
we'll chat with them while they're here, and then they can go back and give us a report on the pros and the cons and what they think it's gonna cost.
And Phil, it's not too late to say that the clerk's office and the treasurer's office do not want to be connected that way, they want to be separate. It's not too late to change that, to
If,
give them separate.
I would not be surprised if somebody said, could we put a little bit of a wall in here
Right.
so that when somebody's over here paying their taxes, or
Right.
their back taxes, or something that not everybody in town is in their business. We've had requests like that before every now and then. If somebody's really nervous, you know, I ask to see somebody and
Yeah, because I could see
either go
them,
in or,
I could see them separate too.
Sure.
If possible, and that could be something you could suggest to the department heads, George. Do they
Right.
want them together like that or separate?
Yeah, something we can bring up,
yeah, if
absolutely.
they really wanted to be separate, I mean, we could close that off and switch the counter to here, basically take the front end of this office and flip it, and then take the front end of that office and flip it, so that you don't have this counter next to that one.
Yeah.
We certainly could. If
I
anybody.
think that anything we can add about future, something to do with the future, especially like what George just, talked about, the security, absolutely, I'm totally in favor of that, totally.
And it's not uncommon either to think that you may want to add something like that at a later date. And in which case now, we could put an empty conduit in a workbox. We could put an empty
Right.
conduit up to the ceiling, and then all that's there, and if you need to pull that
Future
in
use.
later, you can pull it in later with a vendor off the state bid list. We do things like that all the time, for security systems, camera systems. If you're not quite sure if you're gonna need one, then we can pull it in later.
And
So-
can't we also do that as an ad alternate? When we put it, in other words, design it, but put it in as an ad alternate or a deduct alternate,
That is,
to pick-
that's a possibility, and we'll actually be pretty far into the construction documents phase, a month or two before we go to bid,
Mhm.
before we have to figure out what the alternates are. But some things will make good alternates and some won't. And
Okay.
So when we get to that point, we can kind of go through that.
Are there, along the lines, you
I think
mentioned
we definitely
cameras
will. We'll go
and
through
I-
it. I'd like to have the
just
police.
throwing out, do town halls that you design have cameras in any of the common spaces, or no? Is that not typically a?
No, they have not. When we do police and fire stations, they have them inside now. When we do libraries, we end up putting in box and conduit for cameras, because the public library is one of those places where everybody's welcome, and it's everybody. So you can't really say no to anyone, and sometimes people get concerned that you might want to be able to put cameras in. In all the public libraries that we've done, there's got to be 20 or 30 that have done over the years, I can only think of one or two that actually put cameras in. I know in Amherst, I didn't do that one, but they had a problem with young people doing things that young people probably shouldn't do in the lower section of the building. And so they put in a camera, and the camera increased the activity. Because they're kids.
Yeah.
Got a million hits.
So you need to be careful.
It's trending.
with what you're dealing with.
Okay.
To that point, to follow up, not that I want to increase that activity, but would it make sense to put cameras on the outside of the building for purposes of vandalism?
Sure, and we've done that as well. And again, we put them on the outside of a building at police and fire station, and we install them. On a building like this, we would typically end up recommending putting in the watertight work box and conduit, so you can add them at a later date if you feel like you need to.
Hey,
And that,
I'm for, putting it in now rather than adding it later. I mean, we do it, let's do it right the first time, let's
Oh,
not
sure.
do it halfway, and
well, if
if
you.
you need a panic button, put it in. You need cameras, put them on.
I think if you're gonna ask our electrical engineer when they're here, when it comes to things like high-tech camera systems like you have in this space for filming a meeting, as well as security cameras that are either inside or outside the building, they will recommend that as part of the construction project, you put in work box and conduit. And then toward the end of the project, rather than designing something now, writing a specification for something now, and then 2 years from now, or a year and a half, or 18 months or something from now, purchasing a camera has an 18-month-old or a 2-year-old
Right.
specification.
We did that at the
They
high
would-
school.
They would suggest hiring somebody off the state bid list and having that put in toward the end of construction, so you can get the newest,
Right.
highest tech
Latest and greatest.
Makes
equipment
sense.
installed.
Right.
And you're gonna get a better price, you won't have to pay, because it's gonna be part of the electrical filed sub-bid, right? And the electrical filed sub-bidder is gonna sub it out to his technology sub, who might sub it out to a security sub. And then the general's gonna mark that up too. You can eliminate a lot of those markups by doing it and having it right off the state bid list, and you're gonna get a good number. And because it's off the state bid list, you can negotiate.
Makes sense. That's the Jetsons.
Boy, Elroy.
So we'd suggest things for like security systems, cameras, things like that, and again, our engineers will kind of walk you through that as they go. So again, we tried to make sure that all the closed offices were on an outside wall. In some of these departments where we have lots of offices, we try to do our best to make sure that we had an outside wall for each of these. Also try to get at least one window so you can get some natural light that kind of spills out into the general area. And then we also talked about the possibility of adding some transom glass or something over the doors. And when we get into the nitty-gritty inside, we'll look at that a little closer, so we can kind of borrow some light in, so that it's bright in the interior spaces. So, trying to see if we changed anything substantial on this floor plan. I do not think we did.
So Phil, I see your north arrow, east and west, I'm thinking of the sun, east and west.
Yeah,
Is
so-
that to the right and to the left?
So the sun is gonna come over, it's gonna come up in the morning on the right-hand side of the drawing, and it's gonna
Yep.
come around the bottom, over the parking lot.
Yep.
So it's gonna be, when you look out the window, it'll be out over the school at noon.
Okay,
Over the school parking lot at noon, and then it's gonna go down on the left-hand side,
got it,
okay?
Got it.
So
Okay.
the sun's gonna sweep
all
like this.
right. So that would be good for, the melting of snow or melting of ice and things like that.
Yeah.
And there'll be some sort of window, whatever we decide later on. Okay,
Yeah,
got
these
it.
larger windows are designed to kind of take advantage of that natural light. I'm pointing at those little bays that poke out in the front and then kind of bring that into the center of the building. One of the other
Got it.
benefits of these open counters, you'll recall, is that instead of kind of walking down a dark corridor and opening a door and going into a room, as you walk down the corridor, you can look right across that countertop and see right out the window. So
Mhm.
it keeps the whole kind of center portion of the building bright. So you're not kind of walking down this dark corridor in the center of the building.
Because the whole back wall, I mean, the whole other side of the building there's nothing, so that's good.
On the first floor, right, on the second floor, there are windows back there, but you're gonna get north light in there for the most part.
Can you tell us what departments those are, just like you did downstairs?
Sure, so IT, that's associated with the town, planning and conservation with a counter, the town engineer with a counter, town manager's suite right here, large conference room, recreation is right in here. Here's that activity space. When we talked to the recreation department, they said that they like to do some activities in that space right now. And so we've got a table in there that they can get about 10 people around, gives them a little bit of flexibility. When they get spaces, when they have groups of things that they're doing larger than that, they'll move to a different conference room in the building, is what they were saying. And then we have the health inspector, building inspector and health department in here, along with the nurse's exam room with a toilet that's associated with that exam room. And when I say exam room, we're talking about, we're not gonna have a cot in there. We certainly can if you would like, but what we were talking about is a chair that somebody could sit in if they needed to have a blood draw, or probably more likely, something like a flu shot or a COVID shot or something could happen here, or get their blood pressure taken. Those are the kind of things that we're expecting would happen here. So there's a sink and probably maybe a lockable place for medicines. They have things like Advil and stuff
What are
in
those
there, and maybe a
two
little
little
refrigerator.
rooms on the left? Those offices? Yeah.
These are offices, so that's the health department director, and that's the building inspector's office. And there's windows along there.
And off that, the nurse's office, is there a restroom there, is that?
It's a toilet right there. right off of the exam room.
Yeah,
Yeah. So that wouldn't be available to the public.
right.
Right? That would be as if you were coming in to speak to somebody here, they'd let you use that
Right.
if you needed to, for a variety of reasons. I think he was giving urine samples, but if they did, that'd be a place to do it.
So Phil, a question, you know, they do flu shots, they do, you know, different things like that for the public. So would all of that take place on the second floor?
Yes, unless they were doing a large clinic, in which case, you know, they could set it up in one of the meeting rooms downstairs.
Okay,
I'm thinking about, you know, when we did when I went and got my COVID shot, I was in a room with like 100 people.
6 feet apart.
right.
6 feet apart.
6 feet apart,
And
with
a bunch
masks.
of, and a bunch of tables, and we kind of processed people, and you could certainly do that in your large meeting room downstairs if you wanted to do something like that.
Okay,
Yeah, so right now, for example, when flu shots, for example, are given out, the nurse will go over to the senior center, for example, and give out flu shots to the seniors, so that's, you know, and I suspect something like that will continue, that if they're gonna get flu shots or other types of shots, the nurse will go to them as opposed to having them come to the town admin building here.
We've set it up for the public in school buildings, and we've
Right.
done it throughout. I do, Phil, one question in the town manager's suite there. The office kind of, it almost looks a little purple, or, yeah, right there. What is that?
That's one of the conference rooms.
Small conference,
Okay, and that's accessible by the hallway?
correct.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Seems like the recreation department's a little smaller, but that's just me.
That meets the program for,
Yeah,
it's substantially bigger than what they have right now, which is
Sure.
about the size of this room.
Yeah.
Okay?
so does the town manager have like a large conference table like he has right now for
Yes.
his
That is-
office?
That is center of the bottom of that plan.
Oh, okay, all right,
I'm pointing, but you can't see.
Right below the conference room, A.
okay, I can see that.
Now, I don't have doors from the departments into these conference rooms, only because you have a conference room here, and if you were gonna
Right.
meet with a large group, I'm assuming you could leave your department.
Walking is good.
Okay?
Phil, what's the square footage of the town manager's office?
410 square feet.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it was referenced as much.
2,700 or something like
Right.
that? Bigger than my house, I think I heard something.
The whole department is 1,700. This is one of the, we've got 5 closed offices in that
No,
department.
thank you.
Bill, just a question in terms of recreation, and this may have come up before, I suspect it did, but in terms of storage, I know there's, that they have a fair amount of storage, and George, where is a lot of their materials stored
in the
now?
basement.
At the art center?
So will there be storage for them in the town?
That was one of the discussions that we had, whether or not their storage would stay over there or whether it would come over here, and we've allowed for that storage in this.
Okay.
Yeah, we have a large, on the first floor, there's a large area. There's-
Big
Yeah, there's a
storage
big
area.
area there, so we have a lot of storage.
So the recreation department then would, just for clarification, be able to store their equipment on the first floor in that storage area in the back wall?
We haven't really delineated who's gonna have what. We certainly can do that if we
There's
would
plenty,
like.
there is a lot of storage, I will say that.
Yeah.
It's-
So you can set up like bin styles so that, okay,
Is this the school departments?
This is third floor school department. School administration is here. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 closed offices in that space. Got them all on an outside wall with a window. That was a little trickier than some of the others. What's really missing here is that it wasn't able to get natural light directly into the shared space here in the center. It's just so many offices here that I'm trying to get on the outside wall. So in a case like this, having some kind of light above that can just kind of shine some natural light into the space, I think would help. Some of the storage that you wanted close by and accessible to these departments is here. That, I think, fell off the plan and then kind of came back on, and it's kind of gone back and forth a little bit, but we got it back in here. 1, 2, 3 closed offices at the student support services, and they all have windows. And then we've got 2 closed offices over here for IT, and then access to a server room. And then we had, because of the layout, we had a little bit of extra space here, and they had 300 square feet of storage space, and so we just put it directly there because it worked out better with the plan. So that's a little different, but that's the square footage that's in the program associated with the IT. So things just shifted around a little bit here on this end of the building, a little bit more. So we've got some of the storage here in the front that was before. We're trying to label it all, make sure it all fit. This waiting room and kind of coffee area, this combined area where somebody, if you come in to meet somebody, you talk to somebody, and then you can sit here and wait, and then they can come and pick you up. There's a couple parents come in and you're waiting to talk to somebody, you come out, meet them, and then you can take them into one of the meeting rooms. And then this also serves as kind of an informal meeting space for the staff on the floor here. And then kind of tucked through an opening, there's no door on it right now, but it's an opening. There's a copier and mail room for the school department here, and then the staff break room is kind of tucked off of that. Just trying to keep them a little bit off the beaten path, but trying to do what we can to kind of keep the plumbing a little closer together on the floors as we go.
Phil, how many, what is this total square footage of the student support services there?
That's 2336.
And what do we have now over at the Old Town Hall?
I believe it's 2,700 square feet.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but a lot of that's storage.
Right.
And racks and racks of files that are now gonna be in designated storage areas.
So the usable space for desks and so on is greater in this setup here than what we currently have, I guess.
Right.
Yes, we tried to lay this out a little bit more rather than just jamming all the desks in, which we had done in the previous ones to make sure we fit. We try to lay out the kind of different departments based on how many. So we've got the IEP chairs in the BCBA folks, there's 4 of them, there's 5 of these, and then the psychologists, there's 4 of those. We try to break it up into kind of chunks that made sense to keep those folks kind of together.
The one thing that I heard, with the support services at the art center is there's not a lot of privacy.
Mhm.
Is there privacy here? It looks like everything's open. Or do they have to go to a conference room?
This is the way
They
the
want it.
space is laid out, it's what they asked for. Now, there are places here where there's only one room over there, that is kind of a closed room. And they actually, the only other space they have is kind of an open space in the center where people have lunch, and you can't really have a private meeting there. But there's only one small room that's maybe a little bit bigger than one of these conference rooms, over at the art center now, where you could have a private meeting, where there's a variety of places where you could do that in this building.
So, Phil, am I looking at a conference room of 495 square feet on the second floor as well?
Yes.
I mean, on
there's-
the third floor,
Yep.
that I'm looking at here?
Yes, there's one for town offices and there's one for the school department. And again, how they're used is gonna be a policy decision. In other words, if all the rooms are booked up and somebody from the town needs to use this room, I imagine you just need to check in with the folks at the school. That's a policy decision. But the programmatic requirement is for a large meeting room of that size and a kind of a medium-sized 215 square foot meeting room for schools, and the same thing for the town offices. as well as 2 smaller rooms at 120 square feet that'll hold kind of 4 to 6 people. There's 2 of those for schools, and there's 2 of those for town.
So if that conference room was available, then someone in the, how many directors do we have there? What are there, 12?
Director, I mean, that conference room would be used not only for, not for just the people on that floor, but we have principal meetings, as an example. So we'll bring principals in to meet with the superintendent, and, you know, that's a conference room that we could get, you know, most of all the principals in there, and in the central office room for meetings.
Okay, so I'm trying to follow up on Kevin's comment about privacy. So, in student support services, how many do we have there?
We have, you know, we have a director of student support services, and we have a coordinator of social emotional learning and a coordinator of special ed. Those are in closed offices, and there's a, you know, 3 administrative assistants in there, there's some psychologists.
It's either, I think it's either 11 or 13.
Yeah, in 13, that area, and some of them, you know, meeting with parents. There's conference rooms that are not, you know, for just one department. They would use a conference room if they needed it for privacy purposes, or if they're meeting with
Right.
parents for an IEP.
You have
meeting.
two smaller private
Right.
conference rooms there. You have the smaller conference, and then you have the large conference rooms, so.
Two small, you
the
got
large
2 small,
one, right,
medium, and
right.
large.
Yeah, so you've got more than enough,
Okay, yeah, because I
Private
see where it
meetings.
says waiting lounge, you know, someone could be waiting there for their appointment to meet with whatever specialist. They could go into the smaller one, or if that was available, or the larger one, whichever one was available.
And you can certainly meet in the closed offices in that department as well, right? I think there's only one
Right.
closed office over there now at the art center, maybe 2.
No, I think there might be
we
3.
created the 2 there and the one
Yeah.
down the back.
Yeah.
So you'll still have that, put these offices a little larger so they'll accommodate a couple of people for a meeting. And then there's, the director of support services has a little conference table in their office, as do some of the
And
other departments.
I'll just add, if I could, one of the advantages, you know, you talk about the layout here. I don't know the exact square footage, but it certainly is more ample space than the current arrangement right now in the Art Center, because it is taken up a lot by the storage areas.
Right.
That's number one, and then number 2, with the volume of meetings, just focusing on student support services for a minute, that they will have greater space even to engage in the virtual meetings using the spillover conference rooms if they need to, those own breakout spaces. So there certainly are more meeting provisions, more spaces for sure for privacy in this arrangement.
I think you did pretty good.
Where's your office, Paul? Where are you in?
He's staying-
Right near the restroom.
In the Roman house.
In the green section on the bottom right.
Oh, Assistant Director of Administration and Finance, that's yours.
No.
Okay.
th-
No?
No, there's another one. There's the
Uh,
Assistant Superintendent of Administration and Finance. whatever that is. Is that what you said?
oh,
I'm sorry.
Assistant Superintendent Administration, the next one over.
Yeah.
Okay, I see it right there.
A large one.
A large one. Looks bigger than the superintendent's office.
He missed a
That's
bunch of
okay.
meetings
Yeah,
earlier.
she
That's because he's
He
got the
missed the
money.
meeting,
Paul's got
yeah.
the money.
All right. Good.
Okay, all right.
Okay?
Okay.
So that is basically it on the plans. I mean, I've got some of the old renderings, if anybody wants to relive those glory days. If there's any questions, that was really the reason I have them here. And then schedule.
All right.
So,
We can both go over this.
Dan and I went through the schedule a little bit. You can see this one has my logo on it. Dan asked me to do this to my schedule. And so the question is there an opportunity to pull some of this space out of this overall schedule? Sure. if you pulled a month or two out of it, could, you know, you could start construction in December. It didn't seem like a big benefit to start construction in December. Dan says, hey, they're gonna get in there and they might get in there and start hammering.
Hammering meeting.
The rock that's in there, there's a little piece of rock that they have that's at that kind of back corner of the building below the storage space. I don't think they have 2 months of hammering in there, but, so you certainly could pull a little bit of time out. We wanted to make sure, and then if you do see them at risk, there's some opportunities, and I think Dan's probably gonna talk to you about what those options are as well. I can't really go and get my, all my planning board approvals and all that other stuff without like 100% working drawing level of civil engineering. I'll be able to get that in here at about 75%. That'll be the target when we're doing a 75% cost estimate. We'll try to have civil engineering basically done so that they can get their approvals. If that doesn't get continued, you know, there's still gonna be a little bit of a waiting period after if there's a, you know, if there's, I don't know how long the waiting period is in town. Once they make a decision, it may be 21 days or something, maybe 30 days.
20 days, I think.
Is that what it is? And so, you know, you could, if we get that wrapped up here, that time could lapse during the bid phase, and then by the time it's, you know, you start with construction, they'd have time to get a building permit. Some of these group meets once a month. We just wanna make sure there's enough time in there. So, is it possible to squish it down? It probably is. I tried to leave it conservative so that we can make sure that we have enough time to get everything done we need to get done. Somewhere along in here at 75% working drawings, we'll have a cost estimate done. That'll take a couple of weeks to get it done. Dan and I will look at it, if they have to tool anything up. So the whole process takes about a month. Once we have that final cost estimate, then we'll have to talk about what we're gonna do in terms of if there's any changes that need to be made, if we're gonna, that's the time when we were talking about alternates. Now, if we have CM at risk, they'll be kind of keeping track of a more regular basis on costs and so forth. And so we may have that kind of, that value engineering process, or making cuts, or making changes, or adding alternates or something. Typically would happen toward the end, if you're just gonna bid it. If you have a CM, there's a little bit more flexibility there, and we could probably feed some of that back into the drawings a little quicker. That may help to accelerate the schedule a little bit more. It may add a couple of percentage points to the cost, but there's some value to that, I think. And so that's a decision that you all need to make. But this is basically what we're looking for right now. Trying to finish schematic design in here, basically getting thumbs up so I could send the plans off to our engineers, and then give them a little bit of time to do some engineering, and then toward the end of February, the beginning of March, have them in here and make a presentation to you all about what they're recommending for all the different systems. We can talk about those questions, and then we can set up meetings with folks like IT, cable television, fire department, make sure folks are happy with what we're doing. And then when we get to the end of design development and you all are satisfied, we'll start working drawings.
You had mentioned, Phil, earlier that the building had grown a little bit, I guess, just through design iterations. So
Yep.
what is the total square footage now that it's been dialed back a bit?
It's
Still-
about 42,000 and a half, 42.4, 42.5, something like that. I don't remember the number offhand,
Okay.
but we're within 100 feet or so of what's in the program.
Okay.
Basically, I didn't squish the building this way. I took a little bit out of the front to back dimension. You had a 10-foot wide corridor. You don't really need a 10-foot wide corridor. Squeeze that by about a foot, and then just squeeze a little bit of the fat out of some of the other spaces that we had, like toilets and so forth. You don't really need to spend more money than you need to in the size of a toilet room.
Good.
Phil, I have one question for you. One thing that's always kind of, I've never been overly happy about is the design of the entranceway. And I know we keep it on the side, and, you know, we have this big building, and we have this entranceway off to the side. And as I drive through town, I always look at the our library. And my thought was, is there a way to somehow incorporate the design of our the front of the library into that front of that entranceway? And maybe white pillars with a pediment up in the top, or.
Would that affect the isolation of the building, Phil?
Well, moving it to the center will affect the ability to close off
Right.
the
That's,
town
Right,
hall
no, I
tonight.
understand that, and we've gone that route, and what we've got is gonna stay, and that's fine. I am just asking from a design standpoint, is there, if you look at the library, is there a way to somehow incorporate a design similar for that side, because this looks like a side entrance to the building. And I'm trying to make it more prominent, more New England, make it look a little more New Englandish and stand out more prominently.
Wasn't the intent in part to try to complement the
High school.
design or the facade
High
of the
school.
high school?
Yeah,
the
yeah.
library.
I'm gonna let the designer answer this question.
So in short, yes, the design inspiration does come
They will have commercial.
from the high school. We're trying to pick up on some of the design elements from that building, and the way it's kind of more broken down into chunks in the kind of, in the entrance they have over there. The entrance I think they have over there, there's one kind of on the front that looks out on the street. The majority of folks enter that building from the parking lot, and when you're looking at it from the parking lot, the entrances are kind of at the front and the back, or offset, right? And that's kind of what we picked up on. Could we change the design of the outside of the building and kind of go back through schematic design? We could. We've moved ahead with this design based on the approval from this committee, so I could go back, but it's gonna take time and money to do. And the schedule that I'm showing you wouldn't work anymore.
Yeah, but could you alter just the look of the, you know, not the facade, just the look of the entrance to make it more prominent? Is that your question, Diane? You want it?
Yes,
You want it
yes,
to look more
yes.
prominent?
I think she's trying to get it so it looks like it's in the center of the
Like,
building.
you know, they have those beautiful white columns that come down and, you know. and
That
then
wouldn't
I'm
fit on that
thinking,
building.
But this building isn't made for that.
That wouldn't fit on that
Yeah,
building,
that's
Diane.
a completely different design
Yeah.
language
And you
from what we're
affect the
talking about in
office
this building.
spaces.
Yeah.
And
I like the,
windows.
you
it's the
can't
way it
just
is.
stick white
Be honest with
columns on
you.
the front of this thing and.
The library's
You'd
something
have to
different.
redesign it completely.
You would,
Yeah. We had this conversation, actually.
I know.
Yeah, we have. We all have.
I know. You know,
Thank you, Phil.
and it's
I'm
just the
gonna mute
one
that
thing
mic.
that, you know, and I know why we have it this way, and because it works with the closing up of the building, but I just wish it wasn't, it just seems so.
Diane, once it's built, you'll like it.
Yeah, when,
Actually, once
You'll
he
love
renders it, well, after design development, he does a close-up rendering of it, I think you're gonna like it better.
Yeah.
All right.
Should we, okay, are you done with that?
this is my last slide.
All right.
All right, so,
And should we discuss design build?
yeah, I
versus-
just wanted to briefly touch on design bid build versus CM at risk. So there are two delivery options for construction. One is called design bid build, where the schedule he just showed is a design bid build schedule. You get to the drawings to 100%, you put it out to bid, you accept the lowest bidder, and then you build the building. They own building it at the price that they bid. The other method is called CM at risk, which is relatively new for Massachusetts. It's about 8 years old now, I think. or 9
That's how
years
we
old.
did our high school.
So, yeah, your high school was CM at risk, and you bring on the contractor at about this stage, and the contractor starts attending the meetings, and we actually can start sending out construction packages. We can send out the foundation package when the upper floors aren't done, the steel package when things aren't 100%, and start sending packages out. With CM at risk, we could get a CM on board probably sometime in early April, if we went down that path. If we go with design bid build, you're looking at sometime in December, a year from now, 11 months from now, before we have a contractor on board. CM at risk is probably a little bit more expensive, as Phil said, a few percentage points. It's probably a little more than a few percentage points. But there is a shorter construction period as you're releasing packages.
Which will affect cost escalation, but also with
It
the
can help with cost
contractor
escalation, it also can help with
identifying different issues.
identifying problems as you're going along.
Which
and-
could
and
save
value
you
engineering,
money.
Which can save you money.
Right.
So there's value to both. With what I'd like to do is start the process on CM at risk. You don't have to make a decision tonight, but I would like, the first step for CM at risk is just to send a notification to the Inspector General and get permission to do CM at risk, which is just a simple form, and they send it back. Does not lock us into doing it, but I think we should keep that option open, and at the next meeting, we'll come in with the pros and cons of complete CM at risk or complete design bid build, and you guys can make a decision with timelines on both.
For a layperson, can you tell me the acronym with C?
I'm sorry, Construction Manager at Risk.
Okay.
So CM at risk is construction manager at risk. Where the construction manager basically gets involved as you're designing. And the design sections of the design can go out, like the site and the site and the foundation are not file sub-bid related, and we can start on things like that early. We can get ledge removal done early. We can get a contractor on board earlier. So if the goal is to try and get a contractor committed earlier, CM at risk is the way to go. If it's purely cost related, then design bid build would be the way to go. But I think we should present all of it to you a little more formally at the next meeting, but I wanted to bring it up because
Excuse me,
we
Dan.
never really talked about it.
If you're going to do that, can you get it to us before the meeting so we can read it
Sure,
first?
sure.
That way at the meeting,
Yep.
make a good decision.
How long does it take to get approval from the AG's office?
It's like 2 weeks.
Couple of weeks.
Yeah, 2 weeks.
IG, Inspector General?
Yeah, IG, not AG. Whatever.
It's the words at risk that kind of bother me.
It's written in-
Considering that
It's the way it's written in the law.
Right, considering, yeah, no, I understand. Considering at the high school, we had a gymnasium that wasn't done properly.
Well, that's not the contractor, that would be your OPM or your designer.
Who was the OPM?
Back then, Jocelyn Lesser, I think, is that who we had?
Yep,
Yeah,
yes.
Jocelyn Lesser.
Lesser,
Who the
right,
designer?
right.
Uh,
And that they
Donald Whittier.
approved the floor, right,
So,
right.
yeah, that had nothing to do with our CM at risk.
Okay.
So with the CM, for
I-
example, they could,
I think what Dan is saying and suggesting, in many of the building projects, the CMA at risk is far better way to go. You know, contractors that do this on a regular basis and that specialize in certain buildings, sometimes it's very helpful for them to give input in the beginning. And sometimes they offer some alternatives that are cost saving too.
Absolutely.
Is that true, Dan?
Yeah, it's true.
What I'm saying.
It can happen that way, Diane.
Mhm.
I'm not 100% sold that it's a cheaper delivery method, but it is a quicker delivery method, and it gets your contractor signed up and locked in quicker, so that you're not wondering who's gonna bid it. Do we get enough bidders? Because you're gonna have your contractor signed up and his percentages all figured out prior to the packages going out. So it's a completely different method, but it is capped. I mean, they can't go over the cap without, major design changes. So, there are positives and negatives to both. It's really a judgment call by you guys on which direction you want to go. If signing someone up quicker is something you want to do, I'd say go see them at risk. If it's not, then I'd go design, bid, build. I mean, it really is it's really a philosophical decision by the town. And Kevin's right, the at-risk part, it's not really CM at risk. It's always town at risk. Whether you do design, bid, build, or CM at risk, it's always town at risk. And that's just because you're the end user and the beneficiary of the structure.
So you don't need approval from this committee to investigate if you need to.
No, I just would like, I'd like to submit the letter to the Inspector General, because from a timeline of getting something signed up by April, we can make that if you choose to do this in 2 weeks when we meet again. If it's not, then, no harm, no foul, we put the letter in the file.
Is that okay with the committee to let the OPM proceed with that?
Okay,
Sure.
Absolutely.
I would agree with that, Judge.
Absolutely.
okay,
Okay.
that's all I
Do you
have.
want to vote? Do you want to vote to?
Nah,
I
I don't
think
think
that's
that's
it.
necessary.
No. Also,
We're on tape.
Phil, did you say that you've sent this presentation out also to, I have that in my
Yes.
box. I'll get it out to the rest of the committee members, but I'll be reaching out to Superintendent Brand and the town manager to set up some meetings with us. Okay.
Yeah, I'm happy to do whatever you'd like me to. If folks just want to look at it, people want to do a Zoom meeting, they want me to come out, whatever works for folks, let me know.
Great.
Chairman, can I bring up a question?
Sure.
For the OPM, Phil or yourself, in talking with some individuals who are architects, or whatever, they talked about commissioning.
Mhm.
Are we going to have this, I don't know, I'm not an architect or a builder, are we gonna have this commissioning done through the stages of the building of the
So
project?
it depends really on what you want to have commissioned. We can have a lot of things commissioned. Generally speaking, with a school, the MSBA pays for the commissioning of the envelope and the HVAC systems. Envelope being walls and roof, and HVAC system in its entirety. And they review the drawings starting at about 50%, sometimes at DD, but sometimes at 50%, and give input on the design. And then as it's being built, they'll do 2 or 3 periodic visits, and then they'll actually physically test all of the systems in the HVAC system, or make recommendations as the construction's going up. Commissioning is something that I would absolutely recommend you do for the HVAC system. I don't think it's necessary for the envelope, but again, it would be a judgment call by the town, whether they want to go down that path.
The envelope meaning what?
Envelope meaning the exterior walls and the roof.
Roof, windows, walls.
Okay.
Roof, windows,
I don't
walls.
have a problem with it being double checked, but that's my own opinion.
Yeah, I mean, the roof, window, and wall assembly on this building's pretty standard. We'll be looking at the actual sample panel that gets built to make sure that they're actually building the sample correctly, which is really critical. And this isn't the first time I've done a job with Phil. He rejected 3 sample panels in Greenfield. So we know what we're looking for on the envelope to make sure that it's being done right. But this is a pretty traditional envelope. But again, you're more than welcome to do that. It's also not uncommon to do an infrared scan of the roof, Kevin, when you get to your first heating season, to see if there are any leaks show on infrared as a different color. So that's something that, even though you don't see the leak inside the building, you'll be able to see on the infrared if there are any challenges to the insulation of the roof.
That would be important to the people on the third floor.
Yeah, heat
It's only the
leaking.
school department.
School department. Oh, I get you there.
Yeah.
They're used to leaky roofs in the schools.
I'm just watching out for you guys. I don't want there to be a leaky roof like with the Roman house. You know.
Dan's talking about heat leaking, so gaps in the insulation and stuff like that. If there's water coming in, we'll be able to tell.
Okay.
I know, but we've caught a few leaks, believe it or not, with the infrared, so
Yeah.
it discolors the insulation.
I have a question. Is the town hall gonna be tied into the sewer?
That's the
Yes.
plan, yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Move on to the next agenda item.
I guess one other question, I don't know, Phil or Dan, if you could maybe offer up some recent town school admin or admin buildings that you're aware of that are in our area that we might take a look at, you know, whether, not necessarily tonight, but maybe an email or something.
Dan, can you provide us with a list?
We'll put together a
Okay.
list.
Good.
And through the chair, Dan, when does that decision about commissioning have to be made by? Down the road, or?
Commissioning, before the end of design development, you got a couple of months.
There'll be a cost to it, right? And so
Yeah, well, there'll be a cost to it.
If you're,
If you're doing just HVAC, it's probably.
Can you
gonna be
give
about
us what that cost
50,000.
may be?
It'll be about 50,000 just for the HVAC.
Okay.
so we're gonna, it's gonna end up being, if you're considering it, Dan probably ought to put a line item in the budget. We can wait till we get to that point, but you're gonna need to fund it, so you're gonna have to pull money out of the contingency fund or something to get into
We
that
take
line.
all changes out of the school department floor.
There goes your list.
There goes the hot tub.
You guys are gonna have 7 picnic tables out there. Still nicer than the Roman house.
But a tight roof.
All
I
right.
have one other question. Could I ask Phil who he uses for his interior design?
We do that in-house, unless we're talking about furnishings, which we also do in-house, and then we also have a consultant that we would use, that did, OSO Interiors, that did Drake at Town Hall.
Okay,
We offered to do it ourselves in Drake it, and they asked us to use OSO Interiors. I think we could probably both do a good job, whether we do it in-house or whether we hire a consultant, but, actually, for you, I think a consultant probably makes sense.
uh-huh. So, okay, so
Trying to get
then
out
we
from
would
it.
get
I think
like,
it's in
some
our-
options
I
for
think-
colors and things like that.
What, if it's fixed to the building, right? If it's part of the building, then that's something we do in-house. So we're
Okay.
talking about somebody to help on furnishings and equipment selection and so forth for your movable furnishings. So when it comes to things like carpets and paint colors and things like that, we would typically make
Oh,
recommendations
Jerry was great at that.
for you on that.
But you do that, right?
We do
I
that.
just want to try not to get in trouble with Diane, so you don't want to, you want an interior
Yeah. Are
design.
you gonna be interested in colors, Diane?
Yeah,
Yeah, so we don't do
Blue
that.
and
I
white.
gotta tell you, I think that colors have a lot to do with people's personality in working in a building.
I agree. And so if you would like, it's not included in our consultant's proposal that we carried in our fee proposal, but if you wanted them to also chip in on that, we could ask them how much that would cost.
Well, we'll be looking at colors of all sorts of different things, I'm sure.
Mhm.
All right.
I'll see what you got, Phil, not a problem.
Okay.
All right, next item on the agenda. One of the things that we have going on, we have a lot of meetings with different committees, so we're trying to make these all work. I know we don't have to do our every other week like we were doing before, but Dan, we were talking monthly.
We are talking monthly, but I would like to meet in 2 weeks to make a decision on CMR. So if we can meet in 2 weeks, it'll be a quick meeting. We'll just we'll give you a couple of slides on the pros and cons of CM at risk and design bid build, and then we'll make you guys can make a decision.
2 weeks.
Yeah, school,
It's gonna be tough for the school department. We have
yeah, for this month, we have a meeting on the 18th and the 25th.
Well, that would be the 25th you're talking about. Are we talking about the 25th?
18th.
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 18th, yeah, we have a school committee meeting.
Oh, okay.
How about February
I won't-
1st?
For that,
I
right?
won't be
What'd you
there.
say, the 25th you have a meeting, Oz?
Yeah, we had to move meetings around, so we have 2 meetings back to
Is
back.
February 1st too long?
We're thinking it out here.
I can see the smoke.
It's just,
There's a lot of smoke here.
it's just request for
Steve, go.
qualifications, right? You're like 3 weeks or something.
Yeah, you got an interview, I mean, we could get it done if we waited till the 25th. It just would be tight.
No, but there's a school committee.
You guys have a
so can
meeting
we
on
go
the
to the?
Department
Can we go to
is the
February?
18th and the 25th.
Yeah, and the 25th?
Can we go to
had to
February
shift our
1st?
schedule this week.
Does it have to be a
would be-
one?
I
Well,
would
think,
be
I
3
think,
weeks.
I think it'd be too tight.
What if you
What
do
about-
the week of the 18th, but not on Wednesday?
Like on a Thursday.
Yeah,
I
get
can do
finance.
Thursdays.
Finance committee,
Finance committee on Thursday?
Tuesdays and Thursdays.
yeah, see, this is what I'm talking about, the meetings, because
Saturday
now,
morning?
we have FinCom on Tuesdays, Thursdays, we have school committee meetings, and we have selectmen meetings, so every other,
Is there a selectmen's meeting on the 16th?
What about a Monday?
That's a holiday.
Yeah, okay.
16th is a holiday. Martin Luther
Oh,
King
that's right,
Day.
I'm in Florida. Yeah.
Well, how about a Tuesday? I mean,
Tuesday?
17th?
oh, Tuesday is the
That's-
finance
that's when you
committee,
start your
so-
finance, right?
Jeff, we won't
Right,
start
but could
finance.
we meet like at 5 o'clock?
Hold on, Diane, hold
We
on,
won't have finance on the 17th.
hold on,
17th?
hold on, Diane.
Yeah.
January 17th?
I thought the finance started in February.
We'll start at the end of January.
Right, I'm sorry.
We could do the 17th.
We can do the 17th.
All right, 17th.
Does the 17th work for everybody?
Works for me.
Yes.
That'd give you enough time. Yeah.
Yeah, there'll be enough time.
Only a day earlier than.
Okay,
Do you want to do that at 5 or at 6?
we'll keep it at 6.
5 is tight for me. 6 is.
Me too.
but I-
Yeah.
I can-
I tried.
Can wait from work or dinner?
Nothing, nothing.
I tried. You gotta give me credit there, Justin. It's a good shot, man.
All right, 6 o'clock on the 17th.
Okay.
All right. I think we covered our next steps then.
Yeah, we have.
Covered that. Next item on the agenda, public comment.
Where's George?
What's that?
Where's George?
Diane, is George there?
George, do you want
Thanks, John. All right. All right, seeing no public comment.
Motion
Any
to
other
adjourn? Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, John Doherty.
Second.
Second, Paul Malorani. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you very much. See you all on the 17th.
Thanks, Diane.
George,